I went and got my breakfast, and I was going through a phase of having sausage on toast with marmalade, which is really delicious.
Lovely!
Really delicious.
Love the thought of that.
Sorry,
I realise I'm turning my back on half the audience. Are you doing the same there? Should we be a bit more full frontal?
Okay. Anyway, you've got to, if you're having your sausage on toast with marmalade, you've got to cut it long ways. So, and that's quite tricky to do, because they're quite slippery, sausages are. So I was holding this sausage very hard, trying to cut it long ways, and it suddenly shot out of my hand.
No, it didn't.
At the wing.
What did she say? Did she open her handbag and say, oh, I've got one of those?
It's marmalade, she said. It's marmalade, exactly. No, she looked at it discreetly.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a story in here, actually, about having lunch at Wight Castle.
Give us a little reading. This is developing into a very charming little talk, isn't it? Now we're actually on message a bit more.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Not long before London 2012, I was invited for lunch at Windsor Castle. It was only a small gathering, no more than 10 or 12 people in total. I drove to the ancient entrance and chided myself that I hadn't had my car washed. I had expected to be parked in a far-off car park well out of vision, but instead I was sent through the fortified gates of the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. Just like to say, I'd like to add in the odd fact, so you can take that away with you next time it comes up on a quiz show. Windsor Castle is the answer. I parked in the quadrangle as instructed and was shown up to the drawing room, where the assembled guests stood nervously sipping on pre-lunch drinks. I drank water and tried not to gulp, fearful of needing to go to the loo at the wrong time.
That's such a lie. You wouldn't drink water.
I did. I'm having lunch with the Queen. Of course I'm drinking water. I don't remember if a servant banged a stick on the floor, but the atmosphere in the room changed, and everyone stopped talking. We looked towards the door. In trotted 3 corgis, followed by the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. The Queen moved amongst the guests, chatting easily and asking everyone what they'd been up to and how their journey had been. Again, I don't know whether a signal was given, but suddenly the corgis started to make their way towards the door. I was next to the Queen, so I followed her lead. Not her literal lead.
Yes.
Her lead. And we went out into the long, narrow corridor. Windsor Castle has been home to 40 monarchs, dating back to William the Conqueror. And although it has been modified in that time, it is a place that oozes history. Paintings and suits of armour decorate the walls, and there is much to take in. But any sense of grandeur was completely dissipated by the scene I witnessed as the corgis trotted ahead of the Queen, one of them playing with a small squeaky toy. Do they know where they're going, I asked. Of course they do, replied the Queen.
Very good. Very good.
They also know if we're late. We picked up the pace, and when we got to the dining room, the Queen sat at the head of the table, and the corgis arranged themselves around the royal ankles. I suspect that a few things always fell off the table into their mouths. I sat next to the Duke of Edinburgh, who drank a glass of pale ale with his lunch. I know, good detail there. True. As everyone finished their starter, he was deep in conversation with a surgeon about her work. Philip, came the familiar voice from the opposite end of the table. Bell! Oops, he said, and he pressed a small button on a disc that looked like a coaster. Immediately the door opened and staff appeared to clear the plates. It was like a device that Q might have provided for James Bond. I was intrigued. Sir, why doesn't the Queen have her own button? I asked. He looked at me with those famously pale, penetrating eyes. I've got to be in charge of something,